I am Khadijah, and I am here with Tommy Simmons, a resident of Kansas City, Missouri, Jackson County, Missouri. And we're here to talk about criminal justice, and particular corruption within the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, and how that relates to the things going on around the country. Tommy, in good fashion, I always ask my guests to tell people a little bit of a background story about them so they can familiarize themselves with you. So go ahead, let the people know who you are.
I'm Tommy Simmons, a resident of Kansas City, Missouri for all my life, actually. I've been here. Who has had numerous run-ins with the police of illegal nature, more of a setup of nature, corrupted nature, something that I took on my own to investigate, to find out what the corruption was about, what was the setup about, and I came out and found the facts of the case to show that the corruption all formulated around the fraternal order of police, all the way down into the prosecutor's office, to the police chief, and probably judges, lawyers, I mean, just whoever you think that's in this city, that you think there's upstanding people or not.
Is it safe to talk about what happened to you in brief synopsis, or is that something that we need to hold off on to? Because what I would like to do is really educate people on how they empower themselves, do the research themselves and really understand the law. And I think your case is a perfect case that shows that.
I think it is too. It starts with, it's so deep how you come into getting set up or being corrupt. And then if you don't ever investigate, you'll never find out. But it goes so deep is to the point where they have maybe set you up or line you up on something. And then it comes to a point where they think that you're going to find out. And for you finding out, all the people that was involved, they might could be maybe somewhere appointed, indicted, charged and everything. So to make it where this don't happen to them, they got to get you out of the way. And then they use their media to go in and tell, oh, you was this or you was that. It's just like in the George Floyd issue of the murder of him. It came out that they killed him, which we seen it broad daylight.
Right.
But when the court went to the court, it comes out about, well, he was on drugs. He did heroin in 1944. His dad might be, they'll come up with stuff that has nothing to do with anything, to just try to discredit you for what they done done. And that's
even with the discredit or whatever you're trying to prove, it still doesn't spell out the value of life.
Of course it don't.
Or redemption in any way, form or shape.
But what it does is, if by popular opinion of people, then that makes them start saying, well, see what he was doing drugs or he's doing that, which has nothing to do with anything. But they got to throw a smoke screen out to cover up what they have done. I'll give you an example of what's going on right now. It's just like the guy, the Fraternal Order Police, Brad Lemon, he's the president. And before he was the president, he was a sergeant on the police force. Mm-hmm. And so we found out that he was writing his police reports, approving his own reports, which that's a policy that you can't do. And it would be fraud for you to put your name in a box where somebody else's name goes. That's fraud. He was sliding up under your car in the middle of the night, bringing other police with him to watch why he does this. And just think if, they did this to me, they slid up under my car in the middle of the night and put an illegal device on it that didn't have a authorization from a judge to do. So just think if I had walked out on them doing this, And what if I had a gun and was shooting them or something, or what if shoot? They would have shot me, and then they would have lied and said, "Well, we was there to serve a warrant, and he came outside and had a gun in his hand." But they ain't telling you, because see, they set the narrative to these things.
So,
And
so let me ask you a question. Now that we have the federal investigation into the police practices in Minnesota, do you think that this is going to be a trend around the country? And what do you think needs to be done in Kansas City, Missouri for that to happen?
well, I think the trend definitely, most definitely, without a doubt, in saying that once they do the investigation in Minnesota, there's nowhere in the world they don't come here in Kansas City. We have 8 murders by police, white police killing black people that they said had a gun. Um, Now, we have a murder that happened at a BP station, 6030 Prospect, over a month ago. And they told us the night that it happened, they gave us a story right then and there. And they made us think that the guy walked into the BP station, police came in, he pulled a gun, he shot one of them in the leg, they returned fire, and they killed him. So we have got the tape of that incident.
Wow.
None of that happened whatsoever. They executed the man while he was laying on the floor on his back and shot him in the head 2 times.
So why do you suppose the police haven't released the videotape? And if we're supposed to be having transparency, because this is an issue around the country, releasing the tape, not release the tape, why do you suppose they haven't released that to the public to match the statements?
Well, I mean, here in Kansas City, it's a past pattern of practice.
Of course.
I mean, this is what they do, you know. Now, if it was something that was solidified that to the point where they knew and they was right on point, we would see the tape.
So if the public pushed for, transparency in seeing the tape, do you think that they would release the entire tape? And if not, would you release the tape you had at that point? I mean, like what?
No, you wouldn't if you know there was something nefarious involved in it. But you can't have transparency with the same people that's been untransparent all the time. You know, you can't have what you're saying we need to have when you still got Rick Smith and Brad Lemon in charge.
Right, but wouldn't it be the right thing to do is to release the tape in its authentic
yeah, I mean, if there's nothing to hide, I mean, you gave us a story. You gave us a story the same night that it happened, which you don't normally have to. You got 48 hours to give your story, and you relinquished to give your story right then and there. Why did you want to do that? So
what's the deal with the sheriff's department actually being the ones to respond to these calls and then passing it on to the police department? Does that have to do with the 48-hour rule that the sheriff department shows up?
No, the sheriff department don't show up. The highway patrol shows up.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, highway patrol.
Yeah, those 2 different.
Now, is that something that the public has asked for the highway patrol to kind of step in? Because I know they're non-biased, right?
I mean, I don't get this non-bias because they all wear blue suits. Okay. They all got this blue coat of silence. And
the notion is that you can call highway patrol and they will investigate the other entities.
That's the notion, but somehow it's just like, okay, give you an example. Most of the people that goes over to the United States Attorney's Office are state attorneys first. They was in the state prosecutor's office, and then they get appointed to the feds.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, so
it's just a continual perpetuating cycle up the ladder. Right?
So I'm just saying, like, if I've been sitting over there with Jean Peters Baker, and I've been up under her for a while, and then I go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Jean can say, hey, this is gonna harm so-and-so, he's a good guy. Can you do, okay, we'll see what we do. That's how this works. So the highway patrol, they probably used to be police officers and just went to highway patrol because they paid more money, obviously, but they still got friends in the police department.
Right.
You know, I mean, you call me and say, hey, look, hey, man, man, something. Oh, hey, Khadijah, okay, I see what I can do.
So let's talk about the law a little bit, because, I work in Wyandotte, right? And of course, we got the evilest woman on earth over there, Tara Moorhead.
Hold on, let me be a mind reader. Let me think. Who you talking about? You guys be talking about Moorhead? No, you wouldn't think about. I didn't guess that.
So there's a lot of situations involving Tara Moorhead, right? She has the conflict of interest with the relationship with the judge, right? She has padding the cases. She has coercion and threatening of witnesses. How do people understand and take the law and apply it to their case? Now, I've explained this to a few people, but I think you can do that the best.
Let me explain that to you, too. In my case, the Fraternal Order of Police, Brad Lemon, who was a sergeant at the time, was going with, and friends with, and going with the prosecutor, Don Parsons. Now, by operation of the law, anytime, like if the prosecutor used him as a witness and they had an affair, a significant relationship, it don't even have to be an affair. It's just that I know you, we friends. That has to be disclosed to the court. If you don't disclose it to the court, then that's called a conflict of interest. That falls up under what they call Brady versus Maryland, the Brady Act, failure to disclose. And all cases that judge was involved in with Moorhead, and my cases was involved with the prosecutor, all cases, including mine, have to be disposed of. They have to be overturned because they didn't tell the court this. That's what they break down.
Now, does that break down to the prosecutor and the judge actually committing a crime? And
yeah, I would say they committed crime because anytime you know you're doing something nefarious or wrong, that's a crime. And they knew they are lawyers. This is first year law school, I'm sure. They knew that they were supposed to disclose that, and they didn't. And that's what's called in Watergate, where Nixon himself, the president, and all his men went to jail.
Right. Who ordered the hit on civil rights activists? Yeah.
But here's what it is. In Watergate, the sole thing in Watergate, it wasn't about the crime. It was a cover-up.
Absolutely. It's the cover-up in everything.
And so when they did not disclose that, they covered it up. And a cover-up is worse than a crime.
So that brings me to the prosecutor in Missouri. Wouldn't you say that Don Parson would be subjugated under the same law?
Yeah, and what's interesting, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good thing to bring up. I sued her in federal court and had her tied up in federal court for 2 years on her wrongdoing. When it got so hot for her, she left the prosecutor's office because they knew that something was coming down. And what was so ironic about the whole deal, she left out of the prosecutor's office. She went into the law firm with Leland Shuren, who was the board president, police board president. And so she goes in the office with him, and then that stopped any investigation by the police office because they would have been investigating his employee. And it all worked out because Brad Lemon was a police officer, and his woman that he was going with and setting all these black people up in trial, then she conveniently goes over into the Board of Police Commission president's office with him.
Mm.
I mean, this is how this worked. And then they bring Rick Smith in, the police chief, when they had all kind. He jumps over all the major people that should have been police chief, and they put him in. And then everybody's saying, "Well, I wonder how that happened." Well, I'll tell you how it happened. Rick Smith was with Brad Lemon when he was committing a lot of the crimes he was doing, like climbing under people's cars, and he knows about all that. So they put him in. He was the one that when he came in, and Chief Forte at the time started an investigation on Brad Lemon. So Chief Smith comes in and covers the whole thing up. Because when Forte leaves out of their office, he leads the investigation of Brad Lemon to the next police chief to come in, because it wasn't completed, because they didn't complete the thing. So when he stepped down, then he leaves it on the desk. Chief Smith comes in and say, "I got to get rid of this." Put it on the table. And that's why he's in there, and that's why he competed, will not leave, because as long as he's there, then Brad Lemon got to pass. So you get a brand new police chief that ain't connected with all these assholes that's involved there, and you bring him in from out of town, and he see all the stuff that Brad Lemon been involved in, along with them, all heads will roll. But they know that all heads ain't gonna roll. See, just like right now, if you take the police chief out, and say everybody told, "Let's get rid of chief," you take him out, you still got Brad Lemon as the president, and then they go put one of the other boys in there, you still got the same thing going on.
Which is what's currently been happening across the country. You know, you protest, you ask for somebody to resign, and then they put another good old boy in that seat, or they contract him out. In the case of Jerry Ziegler, you know. So
let me tell you a story.
They got a habit of protecting each other. My question to you, Tommy, are you local control, police reform, or clean the corruption? Which category do you fall in?
You could have, okay, just like state control. We understand that state control was geared up on corruption. It's been around 50 years, and it was under the Pendergast Corrine. And then you read about Pendergast. Pendergast was all about corruption. So now I understand why G. Smith and Brad Lemon now is so on to keeping state control, because it's what it is and what they're about.
It's the establishment.
It's established, yeah, established corruption. And they already show you all the stuff they do. They don't follow no policy, they don't follow no laws, they do whatever they want to do, and that falls under corruption. But let me say this here. I want to tell you the story that the woman girlfriend told me the other day about the guy that got killed at the BP station last month, named Malcolm Johnson. They have a 9-year-old daughter. So when they go to the funeral for the 9-year-old daughter, the 9-year-old daughter don't want to go up to the casket to see her daddy, because she's telling them that that's not him in the casket, because they took the gun to the.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to repeat that. I'm gonna need you to repeat that last part.
They while he was on the floor, they put the gun to his head. So they shot him in the head 2 times. So you know what that would did to a person. When she looked in the casket, she said, "That's not my dad." Right. So she went and put back down, and they was wondering why she didn't want to go see him. So then finally she told them to take her up to the casket. They takes her up to the casket, and she unbuttoned his sleeves and rolled his sleeves back to look at his arm, because he had tattoos on his arm that she knew. And when she seen the tattoo, then she was crying, because she knew that was her dad. But that's how bad that they had fucked him up and jacked him up, the police department. And they lying about it, because they know they're going to explain, how did you kill a guy and you had him on his back, and you could see where his feet was and how he was on his back, and you shoot him in the head 2 times, you know, on the ground with 3 police on top of him.
Now, my understanding that there's discrepancy from the entire story, from the moment he arrived to the gas station to the
Yes.
moment he was pronounced dead or what have you.
This case from what I had, because I'm the one that filmed the highway patrol the night it happened. I filmed him on
Right,
live,
right.
and I got to exactly what he told us. So I have the film, and I turned the film over, to other authorities, and I looked at the film, and some major people here that looked at the film, including yourself.
Hmm.
We done seen it, and
Right.
we know that that didn't happen.
Absolutely.
What they told us didn't happen.
Absolutely.
But we still got old Rick Smith that's here that stands by his police, whatever they do, because he stands up under the white supremacy of the FOP, and the FOP is nothing but a hit people organization. And these police, let's be real frank, these police are killing people because they get authority to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Somebody gave them charge.
yeah, Brad Lemon, they gave them charge and told them, say, hey, you kill black people, we'll get you out, no problem. We got prosecutors involved here. We got people involved here. So you do whatever you want to do. The president of backed us and told us it's all right to do whatever you want to do. So that's why they got this carte blanche. We done had more people killed with Rick Smith and this white supremacy than probably any time in the history of the Kansas City.
Hmm. I definitely agree with you. Let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about this community. There was a call, asking for the firing of Rick Smith with community organizers, activists, and organizations, pretty heavy hitters in Kansas City, which is unique to me because I feel like we really haven't had that in a very long time. Do you see hope in the possibility of something happening here in Kansas City? Do you think they're moving in the right direction? If you do, then what are the next steps? And if you don't, what should they be doing?
Well, first of all, collectively, you got to have a collective people to go at this thing. You can't have some preachers over here just saying we need to do this, and some preachers over here say, well, the white guys, the police chiefs, they are, and let's make America great again. I mean, what we just read a couple of days ago from a preacher that said that, black preacher that. Um, and then we found out that they taking money from Rick Smith them
They
to do
take
what they,
crumbs.
yeah. They're not just coming in and trying to be involved in people, because if they was involved in the people to getting to the heart of the matter, as they say, and that's their logo, we get into the heart of the matter. How do you get to the heart of the matter when I have to go out and find the tape and I have to go find the evidence on my own, and you're supposed to be getting money from the police chief and whoever you get money from, but you don't have this information. Matter of fact, you don't even know nothing about the murder.
Well, have you picked up the phone to call the victim's family? That type of
No,
thing. Where are you at in really sustaining the value of life?
I asked the family, I said, have y'all heard from Darren Edwards or any of these guys, the preachers? They said, no, we haven't. The only person we didn't heard from is you.
Now, what about you know what? I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna leave that alone. But what do you think can happen for the future? Like what really could signify unity that really gets us somewhere? I mean, what do you think needs to happen versus what is happening?
I just think that people got to live in the 21st century. See, most of us still living in the 1800s. We still got the scared Negro disease, and they don't want to come forward. They don't want to bring that out. They don't want to rock the boat. And as long as these white people think that they got people that's like that, they're going to continue to do that because they feel like we got an alliance lined up with the good preachers over here, and we use them to come and talk to the rest of the people. It's an old story that they've been using all the time, using the preaching. But I think a lot of people have got wise to that now. And just like the other day, I called one of the preachers out that's behind us. I had said, well, are you getting any money from this?
Mm-hmm.
Any money? Our congregation is a giving congregation, and we use our own money. And then I found 1,100 emails. I said, I found 1,100 emails
That is a lot of emails.
from one
To
person.
put
Yeah.
that in perspective, was that over a course of a few years?
Over a year time from August, I want to say August 2020 to now. So what is that?
You're kidding me. They've sent each other 1,100 emails. You're kidding.
No, I'm not. You
Wow.
know, yeah,
That's major. That's whopping.
yeah.
I don't talk to my whole crew. I don't think I've sent out 1,100 emails in the entire year, and I'm busy.
But you ought to read the stuff that they's talking about. I mean, you ought to read the stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're saying. You know,
Wow.
I mean, they even got the police is giving them the preachers talking points. Yeah, this is what you need to tell the community. You need to say this here, and you need to say this. I mean,
Wow.
I just,
What a way to lead a flock, huh?
and then I've been getting calls from people like in Minnesota. I got family members in Minnesota. I got homeboys in Minnesota, and they calling me saying, "Man, what the f going on with y'all in Kansas City? You know, why are y'all so scared? Why are y'all so adamant to not to come against the people? You know, man, we ain't
That's a
playing
true
this
story.
true story. But I'm
It's
getting
a
this
true
from all
story.
around. Everybody pointing the finger at Kansas City. Y'all sorry. Y'all so sorry, man. Y'all, what's wrong with y'all? You know." I was like, hey man, you see what I
Do you think people would look at this video and be offended because we're actually talking about it? Because it needs to be talked about.
the video of the killing?
No, I'm talking about the unity. What's going on in Kansas City? Why are y'all so scared? I always say you can't serve two masters.
You can't serve two masters. No, you're absolutely right. You can't do that, you know. And but it's just so much corruption here and so many ties to somebody. I got a call this morning and they was telling me that Tolbert was gonna be the new board of police president now, Reverend Tolbert. And people say, oh, you know, and I don't see nothing different gonna change, gonna happen. Because if they made him the president, they done already programmed him, you know, and they already know what his mindset is. He's not gonna probably rock no boats. He ain't gonna get rid of Chief Smith. He ain't gonna, you know, and the evidence is just blatantly there. I mean, we got our former police chief, who's now the sheriff, who has all the information, who did the investigation. And if he was white, Brad Lemon and Rick Smith would be in jail now.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
because it's black people that investigated white people and found out wrongdoing by them, that's mean, well, they didn't do nothing wrong. The wrong people that investigating. You know, it was a white guy that took Mike Sanders, one white guy that took Mike Sanders down, who was the prosecutor. He said, yeah, he gave me the money. And bam, Mike Sanders was indicted and in jail. We got a black police chief that said about Brad Lemon now, and they still on the payroll, they still getting paid, and ain't nothing because he's black.
Well, I
That's
mean,
what to look at.
it's definitely a trend across the country, the cover up for decades. I mean, you know, I can remember back when Chief Cohen was there and remembering the number of black men that used to tell me, you know, I was a little young and naive back then, but used to tell me how crooked he was. He was a crooked cop. He's a crooked chief, you know, and just didn't have that respect for him in that position because of the havoc he, you know, put on the community, the stress and everything. So
I read
you're
an
absolutely
email.
right.
I read an email, one of the 1,100 emails. I read that, and that's ironic that you brought that up about the quote. And in the email, this guy Darren Edwards was telling the police that he goes to about he couldn't come to a meeting because one of their preachers had a death in the family. And I'm thinking that this is probably racist, what he said too. But the guy said, okay, well, you ain't got to come. I understand. This and that. He said, and give my condolences to that person. And he said, and if they need us, let us know. We know that a lot of times when death happens and people are at funerals, people breaking people's houses. And he said, let them know that we'll put police around their house and watch their house while they're at the funeral. I was like, really? Who's paid for that? Oh, but you got to be, I mean, we have funerals every day with black people, and we ain't got the police to call and say, well, we're going to send somebody around your house and make sure nobody breaks in while you're gone. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, but because you in with they little co-op, then you get this carte blanche. And I remember when you just said years ago when Corwin was police chief, the story came out that he was going with his wife's best friend.
Oh, wow.
And him and his wife was into it real bad, to the point that he had put police officers up the street to sit around his house to make sure his wife didn't come and do anything. And somebody came along and said, wait a minute, why are the police sitting around? The neighbors, I think, said, why are the police sitting around here? And then it came out, well, they watching his house.
Well, that sounds like white police chief behavior around the country.
The only thing that I learned about this thing here, which people don't want to do, all you have to do is investigate these people. And you're going to find out what you want to find out.
But when you say investigate these people, that's not terminology for the regular layman citizen. They don't understand that like you and I understand that.
First of all, they wouldn't know how to. But it's just like when I brought all this stuff out about Brad Lemon and Chief Smith and everybody, it took a reporter from Washington, D.C., who was 28 years old, a young guy, who was sent here for a year to work with the Star. And it was a prosecutor that I knew that ran into him down in the plaza at the Black Lives Matter protest, ran into him, he told him what he was there for, and she said, I know somebody that you need to talk to. And she called me on the phone and said, I got a guy here, he's a reporter from Washington, he's here to do gun violence. And she said, I just felt that he needs to talk to you. Me and him sat down and talked. I explained to him what's going on in this issue with me. And he looked at everything and he said, I want to do this story. He went to his superiors, told him what he had. They said, oh, really? Yes. They made him stop doing this gun thing, got on this here, and everything was going on fine. And then one night he called me and said, they told him to back off the story. Because he had found out too much stuff on too many people. And when it came out, the judge, the Supreme Court judge, Powell was involved, because he was the one giving them the search warrants without any proper cause. When they found out him, they told him, they said, well, Judge Powell's involved and you got to back off this. And so they backed off until we got a number of people involved. The NAACP went to the Star and said, hey, no, y'all need it further.
Well, I find when people hear the Supreme Court, they get extremely afraid. But Supreme Court is your friend. You know, those cases, they can be your friend and they can be your enemy. You just, and I only call it your enemy is when you don't know any better at all. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I see that. So I think we're near the end of our interview. And, you know, I could be long-winded and I don't want to go over because I get fussed at for that. But you know me. Are there any final words that you want to leave? You know, one of the things that often run through my mind is, you know, I got a black husband, I got a black daddy, I got a black brother, I got black uncles, and, you know, it's this tale of like a normal traffic stop is just normal. And for us, it's not. Every time he leaves the house, I get very nervous. And I'm always doing things to encourage him and uplift him along with other black men, especially since, you know, you're the most beat up human being on the planet. What would you say to black men right now as they witness what happens across the country for their morale?
I think, first of all, you know, who I'd be really scared for a lot of times now is the guys that have legitimate guns that they carry. And it's so easy for them to get pulled over. And police say, "Do you have a gun in the car?" And they say, "Yeah." "Where's it at?" "Right here." "Get it for me." And then they reach for it and the police, wow, shoot him. And they say, "Well, he went to reach for something," you know. That's one thing. But I think that just like the guy that was in his army, in his whole army gear, and the police pulled him over, and he had his hands out the window, he sprayed him with mace, and did everything to him, you know, down there, the police officer. So if you do a guy that's a lieutenant, and you spray him, and you see he got his uniform on, and he's cooperating, and they do that to him, just think what they will do to just the everyday person. That's what I think about, you know. And so, you know, you just got to be really, really careful out here. A woman told me this morning that her son was getting into it with her, and she said, "I wouldn't call the police on him, but I was scared to call the police because I didn't want him to come up dead, you know."
Right.
And be. And so she said, "I was just scared, and I left my own house and just left him there because there wasn't nothing else to do. But, you know, I just called some relatives,
You
and
know,
that's what we do now."
yeah, you know, when it comes to Black men being on drugs like wet and PCP, um, it just tears me apart when the police have to be called on them, because 9 times out of 10, they're not going to survive that encounter. I
Well, girl,
remember it was a guy living across the street from me who was mentally ill, plus he was on angel dust or what have you. And he launched a barbecue fork at the police, and they shot that man 21 times.
I remember it was Bradley. I remember it was the Bradley guy.
I mean, and we were literally playing in our yard.
Hmm. Hmm.
It,
That
it,
was
yeah, so
what
you're,
Forrest.
mhm,
Yeah.
yep, you're right on the money.
I
Tommy,
remember.
yeah. Hey, in good fashion, I gotta tell the people, you know, you always gonna catch me in my rawest form, and you just got finished catching me like yelling at my husband a little bit because he kind of wanted to talk while I'm on the show. You can't do that. You know, everybody wants KK's attention, but you can't do that. I gotta toot my horn for that kind of attention. Toot toot. Well, Tommy, it was great having you on the show, and thank you for all the valuable information that you shared. You know, I'm looking to see what happens with this guy that was murdered on 63rd Street in Prospect at the Amico. Can you give us his name again so everybody recognizes his name? Because unfortunately,
Malcolm
he's the
Johnson.
next famous guy in Kansas City, Missouri, joining the many others that have fallen at the hands of the police. So go ahead and tell us what this guy's name is. And
His name is Malcolm Johnson.
is there a GoFundMe page or anything set up, or is he pretty much set?
Well, he's already been buried and
Oh, okay.
everything.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm just going to remind the viewers to pray for people who have lost their loved ones. Many of the young people that have become orphans, you know, in particular this 9-year-old daughter who has to live the rest of her life without her father. Peace, love, and hair grease.
This program is brought to you by Computerized Auto Search.